Okay, I am Lindsay Cox, and this is my presentation, Agents of Socialization. Socialization is an extremely important aspect of our lives. No one is born with the necessary skills. Sorry, I'm very sick. No one is born with necessary skills to live a successful life. And we learn how to function in our society through socialization. We learn our life skills from the very start of life. And socialization, of course, shows the process wherein people come to understand societal norms and expectations, to accept society's beliefs and be aware of societal values. There are many sociological theories of self-development. The theories are, of course, for self-development, they're Charles Cooley and George Herbert Mead. But both of these theories focus on the self and how we come to understand that. Cooley, I'm sorry. Cooley believed that in order to develop a sense of self, that we had to be able to see ourselves from someone else's perspective. And he called this the looking glass self. But both men believed that in order to develop an individual sense of self, that you had to be able to see yourself through someone else's eyes. And there are other theories, but those are the two in particular that focus on self-identity. In order to learn about our societies and cultures, beliefs, values, and norms, we have to learn to function in social settings. This learning takes place throughout our lives through interactions with agents of socialization, and there are two types of agents, and those would be social group agents and the institutional agents. Social group agents are things like your family and your peer groups, friends, and institutional agents are made up of school, religion, workplace, government, and mass media. So, family is the first agent of socialization. It's the people, you know your whole life, your mom, dad, brother, sister, extended family, and so on. And they're the people that teach you from the very start. They teach you to eat, they teach you to love, they teach you everything. That's where you start to develop your identity. And my family taught me so many things, good and bad. It was pretty dysfunctional most of the time, but I learned everything from love to pain with my family. And we were taught always that family comes first. And don't tattle. We attended church services 2 to 3 times every week. Wasn't optional. We didn't go to a different church. We didn't read a different Bible. I rarely socialized as a child outside of church or family. The number one thing that they taught me was to put family first. And they were strict, and they expected a whole lot out of me. I've had many different roles in my life, held statuses. Number one thing I always wanted to be was a mom, and I always swore growing up the whole time I'd have 6 kids, but on my 6th, I ended up pregnant with twins, so now I have 7. I'm a student, studying to be a social worker. I've been a waitress, sewing machine operator, cashier, aunt, sister, daughter, wife, but that's just the better side of me. Largely influenced by my family, but I'm also a recovering addict, a convicted felon, and at one time I was state inmate number 216110. Getting wasted was a family affair too, but, it wasn't shared by my parents. That was just me and my siblings. Mom and Dad worked so hard that we were just kind of left on our own sometimes. The peer groups and friends, that's where I learned most of my bad behaviors. It begins in your early years. In your teenage years, you become more independent and you develop more of your identity separate from your parents. Also, when you have friends, it presents opportunities to do things that you wouldn't do with your family. I got into a lot of trouble. My friends taught me to be sneaky. I rarely got caught in any of my shenanigans. My family taught me to be loving and loyal to a fault, so my friends taught me about heartbreak and betrayal. Through my adolescence, I became withdrawn from life. I began to think that everyone would hurt me, and I was very defensive. I went through many bad relationships, and I allowed those feelings and insecurities to control my life. I started using drugs to escape reality, and I spent 20 years of my life after that in and out of rehabs, prisons, and other types of institutions. School was always easy for me when I was young, but school starts, that's where we start our institutional agents, School is where we start our institutional agents, but you get more than education from school. You learn teamwork, how to follow a schedule, responsibility. You learn bureaucracy, rules, expectations, and patience. And you begin to learn about national pride when you're taught to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance and things like that. School was always really easy for me, but I just failed to grasp the importance of it. Somewhere during high school, I decided that, I was in love with this man, and that was more important than my education. And I quit and got my GED. Nothing there interested me. I don't know. When I look back on it now, I don't really know what went wrong, because my education is the most important thing to me now, besides my kids and my family. Religion is kind of a gray area for me. Religious values can affect many aspects of your lives. Weddings, baptisms, funerals, coming of age ceremonies, they can all be religion based, and there are many types of religions in the United States. I just found growing up that religion could be very oppressive, especially the rules that go along with conformed religion. I can see religion itself as an institution, but what I get from it, like the most important part, is the spiritual aspect, and that doesn't belong in any institution. It takes part throughout your life in everything. Religion is the set of rules that belong to the religion, to the faith, but your faith is something completely separate from the rules. I don't believe the rules are the important part of it. Spiritual growth is very important, and over the last few years, my spiritual growth has been a very important part of my self-development, because I didn't really know myself before then. Workplace and government, I've held more jobs than the average person does in a lifetime, and I had most of them before I turned 24 and went to prison. I guess just in my youth, I was caught up on drugs and alcohol, and that just kept me from having any real work ethic. Now, I have work ethic. That's really important to me, that I build a career. But government, they controlled the normal things for me, like, when I could drink, drive, vote, and all those things. But government really played a bigger role in my life than I'd ever really thought about before this assignment. You know, it was in a different perspective than it affects most people's lives, but I grew up in a state prison, and, government and the rules in the prison, that's what saved my life on more than one occasion. It's where I learned to stand up for myself. It's where I finally took the time to stop and grow up and develop a sense of self. I guess you could say I was stuck in some sort of identity crisis for a lot of years, and my experiences with institutions and the government are really what settled me down and got me to the point where I could learn to love myself and get to know myself. And then last, we have mass media, television, newspapers, radios, internet. And they're all forms of mass media, and they distribute impersonal information to people across the world, and it can play a big part of influencing beliefs, values, and social norms. Our textbook talked about the like the princess thing, but I never really was big on Disney. I always watched Grimm's fairy tales. I don't know, the ones without the happy endings. Oh, but I don't know. And then there's self. It's a person's distinct sense of identity as developed through social interaction. I'm a pretty introverted person, but since for the last 6 years, it hasn't really been like that. I've come outside of myself and started working on me and what I need to be, and through that work, it's built my family, and it's really changed me, and that is all. I'm really sorry that my voice is like this and that it took me so long to get this turned in, but I've had a really hard time with it, just figuring out how to do it. Thank you.